Welcome back. Well, we don't have trigger warnings here at GB News. The only snowflakes that are involved in the channel are on our introductory logos during the Christmas period. You may have noticed them. But it seems the bad kind of snowflakes don't take a break, even during Christmas. As it turns out, the professionally offended have found their latest victim, Charles Dickens. The Bromley Little Theatre in southeast London has sparked a row following its bizarre decision to put a trigger warning on its rendition of Charles Dickens Nicholas Nickleby. Well, I'm very pleased now to be joined by Peter Whittle, the founder of the New Culture Forum.
Hello, William.
Thank you so much for coming in. Don't we need to protect people from being offended? And shouldn't I actually have a trigger warning hat on me generally so that people are warned?
Well, Jacob, I think the point is, of course not. I mean, with this particular one in Bromley, Nicholas Nickleby, I think they're warning people about Victorian slurs, you know, sort of in speech. So words such as queer or hussy. And, you know, this might offend people. Fact is, of course, that, you know, the word queer, I'm sure they are using in a very old-fashioned way, which was to mean ill or feeling strange or whatever. But, I mean, the broader point is really that whether it's Charles Dickens or whether it's Shakespeare or whatever it is, whether it's a play at the theatre, whether it is an exhibition in a gallery, this is increasing, and it's sort of like setting people up in a way. You know, they put these trigger warnings on, you know, basically to say, essentially, you could be upset by this. The fact is that the whole point of the arts is actually to, you know, in the traditional sense, provoke and maybe sort of make people think differently about something.
But do you think it's a problem really with education, that people haven't necessarily read very much Dickens, therefore they don't know that it will be using language that was common in the 19th century that is no longer used, that some of the attitudes will be attitudes that people commonly don't have, and therefore people, when they're buying a ticket, should know that they may be offended, and if they're easily offended, if they're snowflakes, they shouldn't buy a ticket?
Well, so what if they're offended? That's what I would say. I think you've got something there when you talk about people basically not knowing the stuff before. But the whole point really is I remember going to see the Greek tragedies when I was sort of like a teenager. I didn't really know what to expect. And I remember being kind of quite blown away by some of the things that happened, you know, in it. Same goes for Shakespeare and indeed Nicholas Nickleby. But it's like we're being treated now like children. I mean, essentially, it's infantilizing, and that's what I object to more than anything. Also, it is making the arts neutered. I mean, you know, it's not a particularly left or right thing, actually, in the sense that I think Ian McKellen and Ray Fiennes have both talked about this and both want trigger warnings to be gotten rid of. Because they're increasing. I remember seeing one myself. I went to see a play called Backstairs Billy, which was about the Queen Mother and her favourite servant at the time, which was a nice light comedy drama. I remember going in when I went to collect my tickets at the box office. There was a sign there in a frame saying this play set in 1979. So some of the attitudes in it will reflect that time.
But aren't we in an unusual time in a sense that until the late 1960s, the Lord Chamberlain made sure that plays were all right. You then have Mary Whitehouse in the 1970s bringing up an accusation in the courts against the Romans in Britain, actually made it sell out every night. Yeah. And that until relatively recent in our history, there's been some control. There's now no control. So people just don't know what they might get. And maiden aunts may innocently be going in to see Nicholas Nickleby, and suddenly they will swoon and need the smelling salts. And shouldn't we not be assisting the sellers of smelling salts in this way?
No, I fundamentally disagree. People should be able to be shocked. Most people are capable of being shocked and handling it. I don't think there's a problem at all. This is not really brought about by the actors.
Who does do it? That's the other question.
Well, that's the point. It is, I would say, it is administrators.
Is it the Arts Council?
Well, it's more, I would have thought, on a local level, actually. It's people who run the theatres, people who run the galleries. the kind of administrative people are the most sort of woke.
And are they just utter snowflakes, completely wet, devoid of any backbone? Or are they just told bureaucratically that they have to do this, like diversity, etc. training?
I think probably a bit of both. There's also possibly a kind of commercial fear. They're sort of, because we're so ruled by safety now and being risk averse, that I think that they're rather worried that somehow somebody somewhere is going to sort of say, I had no idea that this play was, Macbeth is full of murder and
the occult and all sorts of things, blood
and witches
and
everything.
spot.
And you sort of think, oh, for goodness sake, get on with it. But I think they're slightly worried, like a lot of the whole safety industry, in people kind of getting angry and maybe in some ways affecting their commercial.
If anyone is offended by the multitudinous seas in Carnadine, they have a very good command of English. Thank you very much to Peter. Up next, it's the great